I'm glad, Alec, that you mentioned the mundane, because it was literally the subject of a TEDx talk that I did years ago. The point at the end, the conclusion, was that the greatest thing that a human can achieve is to create an invention so amazing that it becomes boring.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, because it's one of those things that, like, when it becomes boring, it's definitionally part of our lives. It's not new and exciting anymore. It's just a core foundation of how we do things. And thinking of the power grid, like, I don't think anybody ever goes through an audit of all the things in their life that are connected to the power grid and what it would be like because we know when the power goes out. Well, those of us in areas where that happens regularly, how often, or we know when the power goes out, all the things that suddenly aren't there for us. But like, so I've been fascinated by refrigerators lately. Like, I have a real appreciation for my refrigerator, because it's like, we haven't had a machine that you can put food in and expect it to stay good for like much longer than a century, if that. I don't remember exactly when the first home refrigerators were available, but I could not imagine life without a refrigerator. But it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have it.
It forces you to live very differently, which, by the way, you'll appreciate this. We had to record one episode of this podcast by oil light, using a hurricane lamp, like one of your videos.
Oh, really?
On the shape. Yeah. Because one of us, and I won't say which one because it's me, loses power quite frequently. Think about how you would have to live differently if you couldn't refrigerate things. You would have to procure all the stuff that would go bad constantly. You couldn't have milk that was around for a while, so you're going to get that, or somebody is delivering it to you. The meat that you buy, you're going to have to buy that really every day or two. You can't keep that around for very long. If you do, you're looking at preservation of meat as opposed to just, straight cooking things up. So your styles there are going to be different. It just completely alters how you live very basic parts of your life. And it's something now that it's just there. It's just like nobody would ask if they moved into a furnished apartment. Nobody would be like, can you confirm that this has a refrigerator? Like, no, you don't ask if it has a toilet either. Like, oh, do I have to go in buckets, or do you have indoor plumbing here? I just want to make sure. No, it's that point of irrelevance that Kevin mentioned. And I think there's an even higher level from that state of a thing being boring. You've really made it when your tech becomes boring. And you've like epically, legendarily made it when your tech has become forgotten, like completely out of mind. If it doesn't exist in people's mind at all, you've absolutely like hit the pinnacle of tech.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that statement. And like the internet is getting there rapidly. In fact, it pretty much to me is, I could not imagine life without an internet connection. I mean, it's, of course, I do my living on the internet, so it's a bit more profound for me than it might be for other people. But it's almost to the point where if an internet disruption is a bigger disruption for me than a power disruption.
Well, you know what? When we had to do that, when I lost power and we had to break out the oil lamps, well, they're always out, but light them up. I didn't have an internet problem. I just used my phone. I tethered my phone to my MacBook, and we kept rolling on that. So yeah, internet wasn't disrupted at all. And that's kind of crazy when you think about it. That yeah, like you lose power, you lose everything, but you don't lose the internet.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I have two profound thoughts in my head at the same time relating to internet infrastructure and electric infrastructure. But it is both of those infrastructures, I think people would have more appreciation for if they realize how together it all is. And specifically the power grid. The thing that this kind of came up with the Texas power issues a couple of years ago, but all of the generators that are on the power grid are spinning in sync with each other. They have to. If you try to connect a generator onto the grid and it's not in perfect sync with the rest of the grid, the forces that will be applied to the actual turbine or whatever the part was called that actually spins and makes the energy would destroy itself. It would just completely obliterate itself because it would experience a huge torque. All of the generators are like helping each other, and they're pushing energy and pulling energy onto the wires all together at the same time. And it's that sort of interconnectedness that I'd like to discuss in some future video, but I don't really know how. But that's the thing that I don't know when exactly I learned this, but I think it might have really sunk in. I saw a video on YouTube of someone connecting a hydroelectric station to the grid. It had been disconnected for some reason, or maintenance, I don't know. And there's this big piece of equipment that they're watching that can tell it how close it is to synchronous with the rest of the grid. And they cannot connect it until that is close to perfect. And as soon as they do, now it's in unison with the rest of the grid and things can work correctly. And with network infrastructure, it's the same thing. When our power goes out locally, our modems might not work anymore. But if we have a cell tower close enough that is still connected with everything, we have that backup option. So that interconnectedness is something that personally I wish we focused on a little more, as far as rather than just the end point, but it's a little bit heady.